I would like to introduce our keynote for 2024. I am so gosh darn excited about this. Deviant Ollam is amazing. I like to say that it's always important to have a friend who knows how to break into a bank just in case, just in case, no specific reason. Just like it's a good idea to have a pilot friend and a gun friend and a sword friend and, a person who can build a car out of Legos friend, just practical life concerns. So Deviant is the traditional kind of security expert. He specializes in lockpicking and safe cracking and surreptitious access to buildings. And I don't think I need to do much introduction because he's spoken so prolifically at hundreds of conferences around the world. He does a lot of videos, a lot of training, but he's so much fun. And I think this might be the first time somebody's forcing him to also make sushi on a live stream. So we're going to see how that goes. But yeah, I'm just so honored and touched that you've chosen to join us today, especially unpaid free conference for the community online. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Am I muted? Let's see. No, I'm not muted. I'm good. This is great. Hello. Yeah, this is insanely early for where I am, and my presentations are always very long because I have a lot to say, but hopefully we'll have some fun with this. Indeed, the only real bungle was that, we didn't make a roll your own joke, like roll your own sushi, not your own crypto. Free one for you next year if you want to pick up the ball and run with it. But I am not a crypto guy. I am not a Matt Blaze type person or Rihanna Pfefferkorn type ones and zeros encryption person. I am a lead and steel person, right? I do physical security. I break it, I support it, and that comes in the form of many things, but one of those is being a safe technician. So yes, I literally am a safe and vault technician. I crack safes, I neutralize safes, as it would be said in the industry. I've put a lot of videos up about this sort of topic. Again, was mentioned, I'm out there on the YouTube. I am not someone who makes content for a living, but I have a compulsion and just can't stop putting out videos. So it's gonna be a video about this that I'll talk about at the end. I talk a lot about food and drink, very good, very fine food and drink at dining establishments that I enjoy way too much, or the food and drink that we just make ourselves. If you do it on your own, just, camping out, throwing oysters right out of the bay onto the fire, making a little special breakfast for someone at an Airbnb, just putting love and putting a piece of ourselves into our meals means a lot to me. I've done talks about food hacking. This was one where I fed the entire room at the conference years ago. That was kind of fun. I've done talks all about liquor hacking, about you can change, your cocktails like this and modify your whiskey like that. What if we did this scientistically things and we got the whole audience drunk? So I enjoy doing talks that I think are fun and breaking the rules in the process of what a normal talk should be. And hopefully you think those kind of things are fun too. I've got a lot of material. We're going to be jitterbugging through some of this, and bear with me. I've ran it through a few times, kept it under the hour, but kept it close. So we'll jump right in. Why do we use safes? We have safes and vaults in our lives to protect stuff, right? When you think of a safe, you're like, well, it's a big old steel and reinforced and very heavy duty and swings shut and the door gets locked up and then no bad guys can get in there ever. Not so much. The vast majority of safes that we use in the government especially they look like this. They're basically filing cabinets. This is as it would be called, a GSA security container. Right? This is in case a class 6 rated container. And it would definitely have some of our most precious nation's national defense secrets. It's pretty thin-skinned steel. Why is that okay? Well, let's talk about what safes do. A lot of people imagine, well, you got a criminal and they come breaking in and they might get my doors, they might get my windows, but they can't get my safe, right? It's the big steel box, it's impenetrable. That's not what safes really do. Because again, people like me, people like this guy, we exist. Neutralizing a safe is a skill that is out there in the world. It's something that you can do with enough time and effort, and that also means money, but that's the job of a safe. The job of a safe is to know that, all right, if someone with this much force, this many tools, this much training comes up to me, I can reliably expect to be resistant to that attack for 30 minutes, 60 minutes. You build this into your security model, And it's really your response plan that triggers, by an alarm or something. If someone is in your space, making a lot of noise, making a lot of smoke, being where they shouldn't be, somebody should notice that, and somebody should go after that person and say, "Oh yeah, this is no good. Hey, buddy, would you please kindly stop what you're doing?" That's what we're talking about in terms of the purpose of a safe, right? If a safe can be compromised, and plenty of them can, you also ideally want that compromise to be very obvious. So here's a different military base. I was there servicing a container or neutralizing the container because they said we lost the combination. No one knows the custodian. So I was able to punch through, chop the bolts in this control drawer, rip it open, turn around while the authority and custodian take all the papers out. But you can see it's like really obvious I did that. There's two giant holes in the drawer head. That's also purposeful. If you're going to get in, hopefully you leave evidence that you got in. That allows somebody to respond. All these things, these questions and answers, they really get into the topic of risk management and threat profiling. So if you don't know, my friend Adam wrote a terrific book about this. If you're doing threat modeling, as a company, we got to spend money on security. We've got important stuffs here. Put it somewhere safe. Someone has to ask. So, Bass, what do you mean by that? I mean, do we have people like, I know last Nick down the block, that pharmacy got broken into? Are we talking about like just kind of smash and grab break-ins, like low skill? Are we talking about high skill attackers, people who might know exactly what they're looking for when they break in, not be messing around? They come in maybe through the ceiling and not set off the alarm at first. Are you worried that literally you might be the target of people who are skilled in this area? I can just tell you, there's been a break-in kind of down the block a few times. The pharmacy does get hit. And it's actually, I'd go to my shipping, so I'd go to the mailbox store, and every now and then, maybe once or twice a year, I'd say, "Hey, we got to send this package, credit card." And they say, "Oh no, our credit card readers are down. Internet's down on this strip mall today." And I say, "Why?" And they say, "Oh, the pharmacy got hit." I go, "What?" "Oh, that's right. When the pharmacy gets hit, the crews would actually cut the cable and the coax lines so that the alarm wouldn't go anywhere." Like these are people who have trade knowledge. They have some knowledge. Maybe they were installers, or maybe they installed safes. There are people out there that know how to do this. What if your attacker literally is a nation state? All the training, all the budget, and you still have stuff you need to guard. You're the US government trying to guard, TSSCI material. How are you going to handle that? All of these are questions that we get into, which is why if you start to see how mechanisms inside safes work and why they've evolved, you will start seeing why we've done what we've done at the national level with certain policies. So safes and everything, they all used to be mechanical, fully mechanical, no electronics. But we got to talk about some terms here. If you look at this safe and you say, "Where's the lock?" And you say, "It looks like all locks." And I say, "No, let's highlight these. This and this, these two little boxes, that's really the lock of the safe lock." You say, "Man, that seems pretty small. Seems pretty flimsy." It does. But a safe lock is typically this exact size. This little casement contains some parts, some mechanical wheels that turn, and it throws a bolt. This you might have seen in the big image. This is also a kind of safe lock. This is actually a time lock, hence the little timer movements. We're not going to get into time lock servicing in this talk, but that's it. Very small boxes mounted on the inside of this giant vault door. You might say, "Oh, wait a minute. How is that possible?" If you say the bolt, you said you have to move the bolt. There's bolts all over this thing. Understand that is the bolt work of the door. But when we're talking about a safe lock and a safe bolt, that is not the bolt. This is the bolt. Each of those safes you saw has very teeny bolts that stick right out and bolt on to other pieces here. If you're operating a safe lock, if you dial the dial, okay, put the combination in this way, that way, the other way, and you turn at the very end, that's what you're doing. Your actions with the wheel pack are catching a lever arm, and the action of moving that lever will extend or retract that bolt, that small 1/8 inch thick, 1/2 inch wide piece of brass. That's all you're controlling. On the back of the lock casement, it looks like this, retracted, or the bolt is thrown out. Right? So you might say, that's no movement. That's a little 1/2 inch of throw. What are you talking about here? Well, because of all these linkages and armatures, a tiny amount of hard metal pushing outward or inward can resist the movement of everything else happening here. So in that giant vault door, basically A little throw of that little bit of movement, that is all you're controlling, and everything else locks. Here I am inside of an armory, servicing an armory door. Again, large bolt work and extension and linkages and armatures, but right under my hand, there's the same little tiny safe lock, that same footprint, little casement with a bolt that's going to move between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. This is what it looks like inside. If you're trying to reef on the door, trying to unlock the giant bolt work, get the door of a safe open, you could just be banging right into that slot unless you've retracted the safe's bolt and allowed it to open clearly. Tiny, tiny linkages cause downstream effects. This is also, by the way, if you have a safe and you try to operate the dial and it just jams, or like why this safe lock's all jammed up. Check the handle, the big handle of the door. Did you see that? They may have jammed the bolt work by like, this safe should be open. I know the combination. And you say, you don't know the combination, sir. We changed it. Let me get in there. That first person, if they wrench too hard, all the safe bolt work from the door is all impinging and putting pressure on that tiny safe lock bolt sticking out of its case. Now it can't move. You got to jiggle the door, free that up. So yeah, safe installer, safe resurfacement's tip, me to you. Now, in the government land, we don't use mechanical safes principally anymore in most contexts, right? Some of you may be aware, if you work in government spaces, you've seen this lock before, right? Going all the way back to the 90s, there was the federal lock program, DoD lock program with federal standard FFL 2740. The intrigue that gets into how 2740 became a federal standard and how the locks that were made were who was involved, this engineer, this lock inventor, this very connected politician. And then like they cut one man out of the deal, and then there was intrigue in the court battle, and then they came out with the new Moss-Hamilton 08, which was a piece of garbage. 90% of them didn't work. It's a whole crazy story that I plan to tell at ShmooCon this coming year. The last ShmooCon's coming up. I will be submitting a story about the X09 and why it became the X10. And there were hidden vulnerabilities in these safes that have, to my knowledge, never been publicly disclosed outside of one written work, which was destroyed at the time. Like it was pulled from publishing. And yeah. You want to know about government craziness, you talk to me, you get the story out of me at ShmooCon, okay? By the way, if you do work in a facility like this, now these days you probably have the gray looking lock, the X09 or the X010. If you want to know which one you have, look for the date ring. The date ring is stamped directly at the 9 o'clock position. You got an X09. If it's down a little bit from that, you got yourself an X10. Totally redesigned on the inside because of some of those flaws that were talked about but weren't talked about. Civilians have also been moving towards electronic locks, right? If you buy a safe nowadays, there's a good chance that it's going to have kind of a keypad looking thing on the front. I understand they are very popular. They're easy to understand and use. Not everyone knows how to dial a safe anymore, but everyone has a telephone. You can have any relative, any friend, any coworker, no matter who they are, boop, 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 turn, and it opens, right? Perfect, good. Why wouldn't we want everything to be electronic? One, the failure rate is higher. Mechanical safes will last you way, way longer if you keep them well serviced. But that's not what the market wants. The market wants convenience. The market wants flexibility, right? You could have multiple users if different pin codes. That works, not in the way it really would work on a mechanical safe lock. I get the advantage, but it does pain me that most manufacturers, if you want a mechanical safe dial, these days it's a special order part. If you want the electronic one, we got that in stock right now. We can put it on the car, take it outside, sell you right out the door. That's what they're moving in terms of product. The fact that I chose Liberty in these photos might give you a hint, few of where this is going, right? There was a scandal not too long ago. So Liberty Safe made the news because there was an arrest of a January 6th insurrectionist guy reported on with, can we just appreciate the surreality of this news article's headline, identified by his ears. Remember, the government wants to get you. They want to get you. You're going out to a street action, even if you think that you're only masking indoors because of COVID. No face, no case. Learn that shit and keep your friends safe. But yes, this guy didn't have the good sense to not be identified as he stormed our nation's capital. And sure enough, got picked up, got investigated, and arrested. And as was pointed out on Twitter at the time, because his friends were filming his arrest at Home Depot, and then his spouse was filming all these feds rolling onto his property. And people were saying, wait a minute, oh, they broke into his safe. Someone said, oh, he even got his guns taken. And then the news trickled out. They said, no, well, they didn't break into the safe. The feds got the passcode from Liberty Safe. They got the passcode to open it. And the feds just gracefully opened it. So as you can imagine, nobody in the MAGA sphere on social media had any problem at all with this happening, right? Of course, it was the governments are coming for all your data, and there's backdoors into everything, and you should just put all your stuff in a hole in the ground like Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2. Liberty Safe tried to do their best on social media, and they said, look, this is an electronic safe. It has a passcode. We were contacted by the government. It's our policy to provide passcodes to law enforcement. We give them an access code. If they document that they have to get in, we're going to let them in. And again, like that did not mollify the general public at all. But this is not secret information. If you buy a Liberty Safe, it comes with a packet telling you what's up. And on the last page of the packet, it's in there. It's in small print, but it's like a record of your combination is kept by us. People all around the country started pulling out their documentation that was sitting dusty on top of their safe half the time, going, oh my God, do you know this is real? What do we do? And on Twitter, again, people were sharing what they had scrabbled together in terms of notes. Like, I heard if you did this, if you unplug the cable and replug and push, no, you've got to actually, there's a special reset code. And a bunch of people were sharing images of like, this is, if your model looks like this, look for a hole in the back to stick the paperclip in, like you stuck a CD in there. It's a very old reference I just made, kids. And people in the community were just so throw up their hands, like, we don't know what's broken. We don't know what to do. Just don't buy Liberty Safe. And Liberty Safe actually was having fire sales because companies who had their product in stock couldn't move them. People eventually, though, did point out, they're like, Liberty Safe is making a okay safe. Maybe they're not as good as they should be on disclosing things to customers, but Liberty Safe isn't making the lock. The electronic lock on that safe is made by companies like SecuRAM, or Sargent and Greenleaf has been used on some older models of Liberty. And again, these companies, the idea that they have back doors, this is not a secret. You can go on S&G's website, this is an American company, and learn all about manufacturer reset codes, how they work, how you enter them, what they do, what they're for. This is not hidden. It's not hidden at all in my world, in locksmith and lock technician world. I have used this on jobs like SentrySafe. You've got a little locked SentrySafe in this building. Okay, let me get the serial number on that, call and pay them $25. They'll send me the combo, the keys, the works, and I can get in. Electronic safes have back doors. Most electronic products, unless the build spec stated clearly, we have to have no back doors, most electronic products have back doors. And because this story kind of wouldn't die, eventually we actually started seeing the press talk about this, not just angry gun owners on Twitter, but like the mainstream press. Joe Cox wrote a very good piece about, hey, Senator Wyden's office looking into this and what does American consumers need to know. And so many people, the morning this came out, I was getting all these fun DMs and signal messages like, hey man, you used to try to beat this into people's heads in the safe class. Like, people are finally paying attention. I said, yeah, it's a pretty good article. They said, oh, you read this article? I was like, yeah, I've read this article. And they keep scrolling through it and scrolling through it. And then there's like a beat. And they're like, oh, you're quoted a lot in this article. I was like, yes. Yeah, I was working on the article, working when Joe was making the article. It's very happy, though, that you're reading it. Thank you for sending it to me. I'm glad it's making the rounds. Because I have a lot of things to say. I have some particular thoughts on the matter that you're getting right now. As well as when people would read the article, they'd be like, it sure is amazing, like what's Senator Wyden did, his office really on the forefront of technology. And when Joe Cox was talking to me, he's like, hey, have you seen these statements from Wyden's office really saying Americans are not being protected? These back doors are not well understood. They should be much more declared and disclosed, and consumers need more. I said, yeah, I agree with, absolutely. No, 100% agree with that. That factual, that line is a factual thing. I can explain that to you. And as we're doing it, Joe Cox kind of took a beat, and then he was always be like, you already knew about this statement, didn't you? I said, yes. I said, yeah, I mean, Tara and I, we work with Congress pretty regularly when people have questions on tech matters. Senator Wyden's office reaches out to me with some degree. I know some of their staff. I know at least one staff member who learned lockpicking at the DEF CON Lockpick Village. So I was happy to be in the conversation when they drafted this statement. And again, like, Wyden is incredible. The senator uses his platform in really good ways. And there's news reporting out there now that says things like, well, Sargent and Greenleaf has this access policy. Because if anybody comes calling, like, well, you have to follow these steps and jump through these hoops because we are a legal big boy company. That policy did not exist until, like, the ink is still wet on it when you're seeing that cited in the news. That policy existed because S&G got a phone call and they were like, hey guys, do we have a policy on how we comply with like governments wanting our information? No, well, this is a senator on the phone. Anybody want to bang something out real fast? We can get right back to you, Senator. I mean, really, it was his pressure and him asking the right questions in the public interest that resulted in moving the needle. That is a slow and hard going process, politics, but that's the only way we get better. So kudos to everyone who was involved in that. Now, it's great that we're talking about these back doors, and should manufacturers have them? Are they acceptable? Are they safe? Are they bad for the consumer? Even if all the manufacturers took out their convenience management style backdoors, there's other backdoors in electronic locks. So we're not going to get very into this. I'm not going to give you a full electrical engineering rundown, but differential power analysis. I don't know if I'm not looking at the Slack as I'm in here, but if there were all of you in the Slack, you can drop a show of hands or throw some lightning bolt and plug emojis if you know what differential power analysis is. Yeah, if you're a hardware glitch person, if you done some sort of power glitching, power timing, fuzzing, browning out ICs, trying to read it, you may be aware of differential power analysis. You probably got an oscilloscope somewhere in your lab bench. Works essentially like this. Let's think about water before we think about electricity, the flowing of water. If you're in a building, you've got inflow and outflow for your water supply. If someone who's outside of the building wants to know what you're doing, they're trying to spy on you, they're looking, but you've got all your shades are drawn, they can't look in the building. They might get some information as to your life and your routines, however, just by monitoring power, just by monitoring maybe your water. And if they want to monitor it carefully, they go up to your plumbing, maybe out in the street, fake work crew, they're digging up the sidewalk. And as they get down there, what they're really going to do is install a reduced line, a concentration point in your water flow. And they just hook up some pressure gauges on either side of that. So by checking the difference in the pressure level, they can say, hey, look, they're using a lot more water right now. I can measure pretty accurately how much water is coming through. And now it's trickled down. Now it's stopped. That could have been their morning shower. I bet it seems every morning they do a shower and then what's this little bit of water? Oh, they're brushing their teeth. So even though you can't see inside the house, by monitoring the flow of water, you can get an idea of what the occupants of the house are doing. That's the way differential power analysis works with integrated circuits, right? If you can control the power, if you're in the power circuit, you've essentially tapped in. Usually what's called a sense resistor is done to pick up the ohms in there a little bit, just to really put a little squeeze on that part of the circuit. And then you carefully measure, and have to pipe through an amp probably. You get your amplified signal into the oscope. With an oscilloscope, you can actually look at the power consumption and what is going on. Like you say, oh, I got this 9-volt battery. That just means what? The circuit has 9 volts all the time? Well, no. On the order of picovolts sometimes. Some voltage is going up and going down based on what chips are using it, where it hits a resistor here or lights an LED over there. There's going to be little power drops. This is a graph you're seeing. This comes from Plour's talk at DEF CON 24, where it was one of the better visualizations of differential power analysis explained. But you can see, if I make this little dashed green and purple line, that's the line is right at the peaks of a lot of those power pulses. So there's obviously a clock signal in there, but on the reg, you're going to get these pulses of power, okay? But not all the pulses go that high. If we look down here, I've moved my little red and green line, some pulses are just a hair lower, but regularly lower. They're either hitting this target or hitting this target. This is literally how ones and zeros get communicated out across the bus or get read from memory. Again, this is a little weighty for our topic here so early in the morning, but the crux of differential power analysis is that it literally costs more power on the order of like picovolts to read a 1 out of memory than to read a 0 out of memory. And if you know what's going on, if you know the startup cycle, if you've kind of done a little bit of analysis of the chip and you've read this on the analyzer a few times, you're like, okay, so it wakes up, does this, does check. User input comes here, and as the user does there, oh, that's the moment the EEPROM reads from memory, because the code, the actual user's code or the manufacturer code, those aren't always live in memory. It would kill the battery. Those live on, some external NAND. They're reading from flash memory. Okay, that's the data we want. We want to snap that data off the data bus, and we can get it just by watching the power blipping. If we have that data, we can 10001. Okay, that's the user code, or that's the manufacturer code. You can do this. You could do this with an oscilloscope on your desk. Plor did it. This is us doing it in our lab. This is Bobek's workbench. Like Plor, you can see, definitely got a Regal up here. How many people out there have a Regal scope that you've put the different firmware on and unlock some features? And yeah, this is the data. This is the actual power data. We are tapped into the power lines that are powering this electronic safe lock. And we didn't have to do anything fancy, even if this was a safe that's mounted on a wall. Why? Well, some of you who have electronic safes, if the battery dies, you got to fix it. The battery's on the outside of the safe. It's under that little plastic keypad. You just kind of push up and lift a little door, pull the 9-volt battery out. Put a 9-volt in, you can click a little sense resistor in the circuit, click up the probes for your oscilloscope. Safe's going to get power, and you're going to get data. You don't want to tote an entire oscilloscope and workbench around. You don't have to, because this exists. This is a little black box. It was invented by my friend Dan, and it is sold. It is sold on the private market to technicians, government folk, etc. It does it all. You literally take the safe dial off because you don't care. You don't care about the keypad. You don't even care about the battery. This little black box gets hooked up as if it were the safe dial, and it does everything. It says, yes, I'm a power source. Let me wake this lock up. Ah, user input is coming in. I'd better, let's see, okay. Oh, I see you're pulling things out of memory, aren't you? Because it's doing differential power analysis. And then it just says, well, that's a nice code you got there. Sure would be a shame if somebody immediately used it, and it doesn't need your finger because it's attached to the wires. It thinks it's a keypad now. It's like, let me just send that down the wire, and the safe opens up. I should say the locksmith version does that. There's a safe technician private sector version you can buy that will power up, and all of a sudden the safe just opens after a delay. You can see on the screen, it looks like it's doing all this data. That's just an animation. They artificially delay the entry because they don't want, anybody to just be able to walk up to a safe like it's a movie and then boop, the door pops open. Also, they don't want someone to come into someone's house at night and get their code, because then they could do some nefarious secret things inside of the safe. No, the little black box gets plugged in. It learns the code in under a second, but then it sits and waits and just twiddles its thumb. Then it opens the lock and reprograms a new code. 0000, and you say to the customer, okay, you got to reset your code. Because of course we care about people's privacy. We don't want anyone abusing this kind of differential power analysis attack. Unless you buy the government version that comes in the hard case in the kit with all the dongles and the crypto, where it does not reset the code. It just tells you the code. And it does not have a delay. It just does it instantly. Basically not every, but every brand of electronic safe lock out on the market, until they made some recent changes with their circuitry, trying to undermine what Dan has been doing. Most of these locks that you've seen out there in the field, little black box exists. If you have it in government mode, where it attaches, instantly will open, tell the person the user code that was involved, and not leave any record that happened. You can imagine why a lot of people have ditched the electronics then, right? Even in the civilian market. I know a lot of people. I gave a talk all about gun storage, safe handling, safe storage of guns, which gets way, way deep into things like mechanical safe lock ratings. If you want a mechanical safe, I'll give you the smash one on this. This is very quickly. I keep monitoring my time. I want to go pretty quick. If you're in the service, who outranks who here? First lieutenant or second lieutenant? Who's in charge? First Louis. First Louis outranks second. It's the same way in the world of safe locks. If you hear about, oh, this is a group 2 safe lock. Okay, yeah. Group 2 and group 1 are the broad categories of mechanical dial safe locks. Group 1s outrank group 2. And we can see that on data charts, the specification sheets. So if you've got a group 2 lock, it's really not supposed to go head to head with a super skilled and trained safe cracker. If you have a skilled person, however, on the job, it should take them a lot longer to attack a group 1 safe dial. And that's because they're made to very, very tight tolerances, and they sometimes have additional relocking features or anti-tamper features on the inside. Examples of these would be a Group 1 safe. This is our current DoD standard for armory storage, the 2937. Compare that to basically the most run-of-the-mill average safe lock that's out there. And it's not a junky lock, it's a fine lock in the civilian world. But if your risk is because you're just trying to slow down a guy with a crowbar, that's not a problem. If you're trying to slow down someone who's learned safe cracking, I could teach any one of you at all. I do teach many of you. I teach a safe cracking class. In the middle of the day, you will get this safe lock open and understand why you're doing it. So because of that reason, because safe cracking is understandable, I've taught it, Lockmasters has taught it, Mark Bates has taught it. There's a lot of people out there who know how to crack safes and manipulate them. The safe technician world has grown. The SAVTA community has really grown. And there are folks who said, man, I don't really want to spend $800 on a Group 1 safe lock, but that manipulation thing worries me. What if the market could have a kind of middle of the road standard of lock? You know, we'll call it the Group 2M, where we build it to low tolerances. It's not super expensive, but it'll resist skilled people. Kind of interesting, but they did. Here's a Group 2M safe lock. Right now, a lot of you are saying, wait a minute, that's the same picture. No, look closely. Look closely. What are some things they did? They actually make little false cuts, false notches in some positions on that safe wheel. They also have what's known as an eccentric roller bearing right in the tip of the nose. That's not there on your basic level lock. Again, we're not going to get way into any of that. But the market exists to serve the market's needs. And there are people who wanted a manipulation-resistant safe that was still kind of cheap. I know people like that. I am people like that. There's one other, by the way, if you're government, there is one rating I'll mention. It's Group 1R. If you don't know what the R stands for, it's radiological. These are safes designed to resist radiological attack. They make use of polymers and plastics in the wheels. And you might say, well, who the hell is taking their safe to a doctor? Warsaw Pact nations during the Cold War. Again, this is non-public information, effectively. It has been known in the intelligence community for a while that there were funny things happening in the field at night with radiographic attacks and literally with guys running around with carrying fissile material in a very unshielded way. It's a fascinating story that I've read. Yes, there were teams of operators, teams of covert operators in the Cold War behind the Iron Curtain who would operate in Swedish embassies, US embassies, Spanish embassies, breaking into our skiff rooms and using radiation to do it. And then they came up with, okay, we're going to make these Delrin wheels. And then there was rumored to be a method that even beat that. And it's true, and I know it. And because I have read some documents that are not released in English, but I'm putting together a full story to tell. It's no longer classified, really. It was enemy. It was classified by Russians. But yeah, again, I keep talking about ShmooCon. If my ShmooCon talk is accepted, I'm going to talk about storage of classified documents from the Cold War into now. And some of the things these teams did is remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable. I'll tell you the text you can read. It's only published in Polish. But that's why we moved back to metal. We have metal wheels in our current armory safes. This is a very fine safe, right? This is an $800 safe lock. It's what we put on our weapons lockers in the military. Is that something you would want on, your gun safe at home? Well, you can have that. It's actually perfectly fine. I'm not saying everyone wants to or should swap out their gun safe to an electronic lock. Electronic locks have advantages, right? Each user can have their own PIN. You can audit it. I think, however, for my money, we have a lot of safes in this house and they're all mechanical locks for the reason that you can't really hide a back door in a mechanical lock. People wrote to me, however, when the news stories broke, when I was talking about Liberty Safe, they said, man, I've got that keypad from SecuRAM or whatever. I really wish it was a mechanical lock. And I just started to tell people, you know what? I've got a bunch of safe locks, or I can order you some safe locks. I can order them at dealer pricing. Would you like a mechanical lock? If I could just come down and do it, I want to document to show others. But if I'm near you, you're near me, let's just make a swap. And some people said, yeah, I want to do that. One beautiful person right down there in Portland, he said, you're in Portland sometimes, right? I said, yeah. He said, man, I'd love to, I've got a Liberty Safe, everything you've talked about. I'd love to get one of those tell me if that Group 2M, that sounds cool. And he got a 2M lock, right? So they had me come down. We've set up a camera and I walked with them through it. They did it with me. The brilliant thing about this, I've been showing you those different pictures of locks. You might be noticing they're all roughly the same size. They have different worky bits inside of them, but the casement, it all fits what is called the magic module footprint. Safes, big, small, old, young, they all tend to have this sort of same size footprint and the same mounting holes, the 1/4x20 holes. If you have an electronic lock in your safe right now, it's trivial to pop the service panel. You take the sheetrock panel off, you're looking at it, a few screws, you can lift and cam that out of there, take the electronic dial off the front, and just install a mechanical lock. There's not a lot going on that can go wrong. We had our share of hiccups because the lock I had was probably on a retail shelf in a storage room for 10 years. I had to relube it. But yeah, it worked. We installed the thing, they checked it out. I had them operate their combination a few times. We had to do a little fun engineering to reassemble some linkages and so forth. But again, a couple seconds with a Dremel, and they were setting a combination. And as again, rule of 3, people, right? If you ever do anything to a lock, before you close the safe, you test it 3 times. You turn around. Wait, did I really do it right? Yes, that's my combination. Okay, it's what I said. Are you sure you're working? Because I'm going to hit the road here. I'm not going to be your service tech forever. But they said, no, I'm really confident. Everyone, this is great. Thank you so much. And you can keep this electronic lock for your workbench. I said, yeah, cool. So yeah, my friend Derek has a brand new safe that now is all mechanical, much happier with it. If you want to do this to one of your safes, I documented that whole thing in their room. So I'm happy to just put that video out either tomorrow or sometime soon. Got you on the time. I will be putting that out. Any one of you, again, most of what I think of and talk about in my general theme of my talks is I am an idiot and so can you. So that's what I want to do. I want to enable and empower you to do things on your own with any bit of information I can provide. So we talked about safes, but we're going to roll right along and talk about sushi. I was considering doing this live on camera, but you can see I'm sitting in my office. You can also see I woke up at 6 a.m. to be with you folk. And even I cannot make a perfect sushi thing in the kitchen and handle knives like that so early in the morning. But you're going to get plenty of live demos because, as you should all know about your presentations, you record them. So now you get that plus production values. So cooking and baking. Cooking and baking is fun. I love it. Tara loves it. This is obviously a corned beef and cabbage with beautiful roast for St. Patty's Day. This was a beautiful kind of pie. This is a meat pie Tara was making. I don't know if this was around the spooky season or just Edgar Allan Poe's birthday, because she made her own little cookie cutters out of soda cans, and we have our ravens and we have Lenore. We enjoy this. We enjoy experimenting with food. If you have too many pumpkins, oh, pumpkins are on sale. It's Halloween. You make an amazing pumpkin bake. Again, you're seeing mostly Tara's skill, although I'm happy to help when I can, and I prep and dress things. In the kitchen for a long time, I was a bit of a one note. I was a steak guy. You know, that's just kind of what I enjoyed making, and getting really into sous vide cooking and seeing if I can do that on the road. Like here I am in hotel rooms. Many of you have been in a hotel room with me where you're like, what's that contraption over there? Oh, I'm just cooking a steak and some veg in the hotel room over here. Raise a hand if you want in the chat if you've ever been fed food by me at a HackerCon in my room or like down on the con floor. I'm just walking around offering steak and potatoes. I do enjoy fielding my own food. Tara and I harvest food out either from our gardens, either from the bounties of the sea that are right near us. We hunt, we fish, we do all that. And I do try on occasion to be fun, right? So wanted to experiment with knife skills, get a little better with that. I started playing with how to make these vegetable flours as a little head nod to my friend El Armageddon. I'm going to do some salad posting here. So food is fun to play with, right? You can brighten up your experience. You can make it look gorgeous. And in the process, I always like to say it's a game with infinite continues. So in our household, we take our meals pretty independently a lot of the time when we're working hard. But if there is a dinner meal, it had kind of been Tara a lot. Especially the pandemic, we got into the pattern of Tara doing a lot of cooking because I would work long and late into the night. And I do most of the cleaning all around the house. But as we balanced the duties, Tara said, hey, I would like to have one night a week. It's really stressful what's going on in the world. I'd like one night that we can count on that I don't think about food at all. Would you like just choose a night? That'd be kind of nice thing to do as a routine. I said, yeah, I'd do that. And immediately I said, all right, if I'm going to do it, I want to skill build. I want to pick a thing and do that one thing over and over and over and make it better. And she was chagrined. She's like, that sounds really boring. It's like Meatloaf Mondays. And I said, no, I would prefer midweek, like a Thursday. But let's actually pick something. Well, you know what I would eat. There's one thing you could just put in front of me forever until I die. If I was in a prison cell and I was eating Japanese food, I'd be pretty okay. And she's like, yeah, I would eat Japanese food anytime. So we decided on Thursday night, it was gonna be Thursday night sushi. And I would do from top to bottom. And I don't know anything about sushi. I don't know anything about a lot of stuff. But I am an idiot, and so can you. So I went off and I started reading all the books I could, which were from the internet. It meant I read most of one book that was in the top search result. Then I watched a lot of YouTube videos. And if you follow me on Instagram for the last 2 years, you've been seeing every Thursday night or every Friday morning, images start to pop up of a sushi dinner that we will have made, and playing with different roll shapes, playing with nigiris, playing with all different styles and sizes. I've had fun. I've had fun getting better and better, making cooler looking art, trying different flavors. It's a game with infinite free continues. There's nothing wrong with being like, oh man, that didn't quite work out. Oh, well, learn what you can and try again next time. Sushi is not easy, right? But it's easy to start. It might be hard to get great, but just start. It's pretty hard to be bad. The ingredients, if you make them right, you're using good fish, good rice, good flavors, everything's fine. Just jump in. Let me break some myths and misconceptions down. And I know I'm a little tight on time. Woo! We're going to be bumping up really close. Please forgive me. I'm going to talk fast. So sushi's always raw, and that's gross. No, it's not. Plenty of sushi is cooked. Plenty of sushi is vegan, first of all. Or if you do have meat, like here we have a tempura shrimp. Here we have a cooked eel, right? Unagi is one of my favorite sushi flavors. Well, sushi's so high carb, though, because I can't do all that rice. Well, you can use rice alternatives. You can use brown rice or healthier rice. It's going to taste a little different. I don't recommend using like cauliflowered rice. I've tried it a few times. It doesn't work super well with the moisture content, causes things to fall apart. But forget all the grain on the rice. Just have sashimi. If you have friends over who are keeping low carb on sushi night, whack up a bunch of sashimi that they can blow through. Like, it's fine. Sashimi is wonderful. Sushi can't be vegan. I'm vegetarian or I'm vegan. Yes, it can. Make a roll of cucumber and some, Daya-style cream cheese, or this looks like asparagus and cream cheese. Perfectly fine. The nigori on the other side of the right side, that's not fish. That's roasted red pepper that I've soaked with dashi to give it a sort of an oceany flavor, right? My friend Annie had a friend over and there, this is gonna be full vegan night. What did they do? Well, here you see some kannaku root flour. Basically, you can pack it and mold it, and it comes as like a block, a little cuttable block. So Annie marinated these strips in soy and either dashi. She'd probably use nori, I think. You get that seaweed, that oceany flavor through the marinade, a little bit of soy sauce in there, a little bit of coloring just because you want to make it look like fake tuna. These look like, at a glance, bang, you would swear like you're eating a tuna roll. And they even taste a little bit oceany. Absolutely, play. This is an area where you can play. Well, I can't do this because I'm on a budget. Sushi is very expensive. I mean, yes and no. If you go out to a restaurant, sushi is very expensive oftentimes at a good place. Doing it at home, you can chop way down on that price. And the economies build in even further for something like uni, like sea urchin, right? Sea urchin is one of the more expensive things you can find on a sushi menu. We happened to spot it at Wajimaya. Tara brought it home, and we're like, well, let's figure out how to dress these down. And they're a little, you got to do some fungineering and surgical action. But we eventually dressed and cleaned out. This is easily up in the 3 figures worth of uni. If you bought this at a restaurant, that's got to be, I don't know. Tell me in the comments if you think this is wrong. $300 or $400, probably more, depending on where. And again, that was 20 bucks. So yes, I like the challenge of playing with it. I like the idea of like, the challenge of rolling and making it. It's a game with infinite free continues. Try a few things, see if they work. If they don't work, try something else. This was supposed to be hearts that I was embedding for Valentine's Day on sushi. And it kind of looked like the letter V. I still tried them. Next time I'll cut the fish a little bit different. It's a game with infinite free continues. Just try it. So what do you want to have if you want to do this? Get some supplies. You don't need too many. If you have one very nice, long, sharp chef's knife, doesn't have to be a sushi knife, Japanese knife, but a nice, long chef knife. We got one from Chris and Amanda for our wedding. Serves us fine. Have a bamboo rolling mat that you're going to work on, a little rattan or bamboo style mat. I don't mean just any sushi mat, as you'll see, there are crappy ones. The rest, literally, you can tactically acquire, by which I mean steal. But don't cheap out on the bamboo mat, right? You'll get these little plasticky silicone ones. Yeah, they roll, but notice if I pinch over here, it's not actually imparting force anywhere else on the mat. These are worthless. What you do is you chop them up, you turn them into pin trays for your locksmithing kit. The bamboo kit, however, if I pinch here, that force is evenly spaced across the entire roll. Because we're trying to make things look nice and even, okay? Some sushi making tips. Again, going to go kind of fast. My slides will be published by tomorrow morning. You can get all these kind of notes and terms, right? All different preparations in your sushi restaurant. We're also missing temaki is not in there, which is the hand roll. Which one of these is sushi? Are they all sushi? Are none of them sushi? They're mostly all sushi preparations, and maybe not the sashimi, because sushi really means rice. Sushimashi is a type of rice preparation. I'm going to tell you how to make rice. If you learn nothing else, this is the takeaway. There are many sushi rice recipes online. I tried a whole bunch of them, and here's the one that I've settled on and I really, really like. If you start with sushi grade rice, there are many rice. You could try jasmine rice, long grain, who the hell knows? But there are recognizable sushi rice, botan with the big red flour, very economical. If you want to flex on the people who are socioeconomically beneath you, you can get tamaki or tamaki gold. I personally haven't gone in for that. I'm in the store, look for the pink blossoms. Look for seka, pink blossoms on the bag. Making the rice, I've got the recipe up here. I am going to be able to also, again, post it at the end. Really worried on our 3-minute time check because I'm going to be, we got about another 10 minutes total. I was trying to be done by the top of the hour. We'll see. We'll see if I can rush. But every bunch of people are going to cringe. They're thinking, oh my God, he put the rice right in. No, you rinse the rice. Please rinse your rice. You don't have to use a sieve. You don't have to waste water. Stirring the rice around. You can do this, by the way, if you buy shredded cheese. Like if you're doing a giant shredded cheese recipe and you're like, man, I hate that bags of shredded cheese have that caking agent on them. You can rinse it off. It's just slightly wet cheese. Put it in your ingredients. But with your rice, if you're rinsing and draining to the point that you can start to see the rice through the water, you don't have to see it perfectly clearly. If you can see the rice through the water, you're there, you're fine. We were doing, there it is, that looks pretty fine to me. So we're doing 2 cups of rice, we're going to do 2 cups of water, adding in a little bit of vinegar and mirin, adding in a little bit of salt and sugar. Again, the recipe is on the screen, it's going to be in your text. If you use an Instant Pot, the rice mode on an Instant Pot is balls. Don't use it. We use pressure cook mode for about 14 minutes on low pressure. You're going to let that little pressure build. You let that pin pop up. And when the pin pops down and releases, the pressure is released naturally. Your rice is ready. I'm going to speed up a little bit on time. You see, I don't have to talk about just getting your measurements out. These little bowls, stolen, not paid for. Thank you, Delta Airlines. Mirin, rice vinegar, etc. Now, as I'm bringing in, so the rice is ready. Last point I'm going to tell you, you don't want to stir the rice to like make it a gloopy paste, right? You don't want to be like, oh man, I just made congee. So to fold in, it's chop and fold when you are working in those ingredients. There's our rice coming in, all of our sugars, all of our salts, all of our mirin. Chop and fold, chop and fold. You're managing heat distribution, you're managing moisture content, you're getting ready to go. Your rice can't be super wet because other things that you're working with need that rice to be kind of fluffy and dry. Specifically your nori, right? Seaweed wants to be dry, has that nice snap. If you get the nori all soggy and wet, just becomes flimsy, gummy. It's not a good experience. And here you're seeing nori and you're saying, hey, he's using that same meme again. Look closer. There's half-size sheet and full-size sheet. You can take a full-size sheet and make it a half sheet. You can't make a half sheet larger. Keep that in mind. I've done that the wrong way. We do have some videos now at the end, again, for my live demo. Instead of fumbling around the kitchen, I shot a series of quick edit videos. I would hope that we can push this to, another 5-6 minutes to get through it at the end. I can talk fast, I can play it fast, I can skip view it fast. We'll get maybe a full version of the videos and the slides when I release it. Drying our fish. Why are we drying our fish? Because we don't want to have wetness coming in to the nori when you're making the wrap. Creaminess. Oh my goodness. Why do you see me busting up an avocado? Having something creamy, either an avocado, either straight up cream cheese is a more of an American way. You see that sometimes in the US market, or making a little of a mayonnaise preparation, maybe with some lobster sensation. Anything that you can add in to contrast the stiffness and the meatiness of the fish, the crunchiness of the tempura. Then long strips. This is where you get to play with your knife skills. If you did it wrong, don't worry. I'll show you that it's not a problem if you're like, oh man, that cut completely didn't do what I wanted it to do. We're talking about slicing here. We're talking about slicing off here. I'm showing some cuts over here on the salmon. I made a few sushi cuts at first. Then I'm going to drop into, go ahead and make some long, thin slices. Here's our hamachi, making some sashimi first. Hamachi, if you feel a little tough part, trim out the tough part, move along, make some long, thin slices. So you can see, getting our mise en place ready to go. I mentioned avocados. Quick tip from me to you. How do you tell an avocado whoa from an avocado no? You pop off that little nubbin, right? You look down in there. It's like a window into the heart and the soul. If it looks nice and green, your way to be. If it looks kind of brown, put it down. A note about knife skills. If you want to get better with knife skills, practice on vegetables. You do not have to be this level of insane to do sushi right. You'll see that I'm going to show you some cheaty stuff with my knife skills. I really hope Leslie and others aren't panicking that I'm still talking. I was thinking it was a full hour, but I know you need room for questions. That's why I'm skipping ahead with that. Oh my God, yeah, the katsuramaki cut. Like, yeah, you don't have to katsuramuki your like vegetables. You don't have to be this good. Notice they're just making them into long, thin strips. I do that with a vegetable peeler. I bash out a few of them with long, thin strips, then I set them up and I just run my knife through them. Why? Because I don't have to be this good. You don't have to be as good as the people you're aspiring to be on the first times you jump in. So let's jump in. Final bits of footage. Let's talk about making a roll. All right, we've got our sushi mat. I highly recommend you cover it with saran wrap so things don't stick to it. There's another few things about not sticking. The sushi itself, right? The sushi paper has a shiny side and a rough side. I work on the rough side. Don't want the sushi rice to stick to your hands? Wet your hands. Get a nice ball of rice, spread it out. My hands aren't perfectly wet, sticking to them a little bit, but I don't want the nori paper wet. The nori paper stays dry because the sushi is sticky and dry. Once you think you've got it, you could just start building a roll like this, or I'm going to do a little uramaki. I'm going to do an inside out roll. I like those. But if I flip this sticky rice upside down, it's going to jam onto the plastic. So a little bit of fish eggs, right? A little bit of tobiko. They're like little ball bearings. Now I'm ready to build my roll. Play however you want to do this. It's fine. It's going to be fine. Fish, a little bit of creaminess, maybe some artificial crab. And then you'll get a couple shots here of actually making the roll curl up. I've got a good pinch. I'm holding onto that plastic so I don't lose it. And then it's kind of advance and crimp, advance and crimp, advance and crimp my whole way up. If you can do that, you can make a sushi roll. This is not a challenging thing. I'm really hoping you can see the last couple of creations in this video because it'll offer you a few more real nice tips that you're not going to be surprising yourself on. Did you notice my knife blade there? My knife I showed you was wet because I had to drop it through that sticky rice. And even then, it kind of makes the sushi roll misshapen. Come in again with your mat. Just give it just a little grab, just a little whoop, and now they're round again. Peel the paper. There you go. You've just made a sushi roll, and it looks gorgeous. And that was quick, dirty, kind of idiotic me. If I want to make a different kind of creation here, maybe a regular style roll, this is an easier one for you to start with. Keeping the rice on the inside. It's a lot easier to kind of say, all right, the paper, the nori seaweed paper is on the outside. That's going to be easier for my hands and the head and my brain. Be aware, I'm going to give you another little tip here. Again, advance and pinch, advance and pinch, advance and pinch. But we're going to get a problem of like an envelope that doesn't want to seal. So how are you going to send that letter through the mailbox? With that little flap at the end, here's a cheaty method. You can just put a few specks of sticky rice right there at the end. That'll seal it up. Who cares that it's not official? Who cares that it's not the traditional way? I am not beholden to tradition, and nor should you. This is about having fun and eating a little bit healthy in the process. By the way, having fun, crunchy bits. You don't have to use fried food. This is crushed up rice cracker. Just crushed up rice cracker that I added to the roll because I wanted crunchiness. Or these harvest snaps that I got at Costco, right? I took a few of these pea snaps, crushed them up. I incorporated them in my roll, and I incorporated them around the outside of the roll because I was just making a simple little veggie roll that morning. Bam, bam. crunchy and fun. It was just, would an actual Japanese chef probably cringe at this? Maybe, I don't know. But I'm not in a restaurant charging money for my rolls. I'm just trying to have fun with people eating lunch with me. Yeah, that contrast between smooth and crunchy, that keep that in mind when you're building your sushi creations. Avocado cream cheese, that snap from the nori or little tobiko, tempura elements. Sashimi is awesome. If your friends don't want to eat carbs, just blast some sashimi out there on the page. If they still want a roll, however, you can make a non-rice roll, right? Use some of those long strips of your cucumber, build your ingredients. Don't try to use nori. Don't use the seaweed. There's no way to make this dry, right? You're going to get soggy, gummy seaweed. It's not going to be a good time. Just roll it straight up like this, whack, 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 whack it apart. You've got a perfectly acceptable sushi roll for participation among friends. Is it traditional? No. Is it tasty? Yes. Make people happy. Rules aren't real. I mentioned if you have little trash cuts, if you have maybe just smaller hands or a smaller appetite, the half-size sheets, you can make little cone-shaped hand rolls. This is a great place to use those little trash cuts of fish. If you have bits and ends, they don't have to be long strips going in a hand roll. You can add just little diced up bits, threw some avocado in there. I think it looks like I put a little bit of wasabi in there. Literally a ping pong ball size of rice with just a little bit in the corner. That's going to help seal my envelope. Leslie, I promise I'm on like the second to last slide, so don't worry, I'm going to be done in a sec. Add your fish, add your veg. There you go. Tighten it up, get a real tight current turn on the corner, spin it around. Hand rolls, little classic Japanese sushi bar, businessman on the go hand rolls. They're fun, and you can use up bits of fish that you thought had no other purpose. Absolutely try that. But just generally go nuts, break the rules, right? There's infinite possibilities. I don't have a deep fryer in my house, but I love adding a tempura shrimp once in a while. If you're really going for, this is kind of like a futomaki or a giant roll at the last thing we're making here, where you just put everything in. Again, you don't want to be Bob Ross, don't want to be a mud. He is like, don't be a mud mixer. Don't put every piece of paint on the canvas. But who cares? It's food. It's a game with infinite free continues. Think about it, like the shrimp's going to hit that. So wait, I need more shrimp around here. Okay, let me pack this in on that side. Let me pack more fish in, roll it up, make it look gorgeous. If it doesn't look gorgeous, pretend it did and make another one. It's a game with infinite free continues. You are in charge of what you like. Your friends get to be in charge of what they like. You can see, what am I doing to seal my envelope there? I just did a little drizzle of soy sauce, just a little bit. The nori can be a little bit wet on the treat, as a treat on the weekend. But it sealed it up just fine. I don't care if that's just traditional way to do it. I made a giant roll for everyone to ooh and ah over and enjoy. I hope that you kind of oohed and ahhed over and enjoyed this presentation. I know that, again, it just went a little bit longer than I wanted her to. But showing you how to make various things. These I just made last night just so I would have something that you could play around with and see. Maybe if I'm still in the chat later, I'll be making more because I still have some leftover rice. In general, there's the proper way to do things, which you can take inspiration from, but not really be beholden to. And then there's your way. Just do things your way. I want you to have fun. I don't want you to be frustrated from learning any of this. If you have questions about the safe locks, ask me about that. If you have questions about any security, ask me about that. Questions about food and drink, ask me about that too. I'm on the internets and all the places. I'm so happy to have been able to come here and talk to you and tell you this kind of stuff, because if you're ever on the fence, you just need that little push. I'd love to be that push. As someone I love very much, Mercury Stardust, she reminds us all every day, you're worth the time it takes to learn a new skill. You really are worth it. You have the ability to. I believe in you, and so does everyone else here. So try something new. Maybe you enjoy it. Maybe it becomes part of your Thursday night. Have a good Saturday morning. Sunday morning, everybody. Thank you, Leslie, and thank you to PancakesCon. Sorry it was a few minutes long.